Hey everybody, welcome to Switched On with Paul Moderman and James Wood. I am the aforementioned Paul Moderman because that's just how it works. I always say that. And with me today, as always, I don't even know why I do this. Like why do I say with me today when our names are in the title of the thing? It's kind of funny. But with me today, as always, is James Wood. Say hi, James.
Hey there.
Um we are amped and pumped and hyped. Not in like a not in like a birthday party, like just had cake mode, but we've been talking about digital transformation and a lot of the things in and around it. And in a lot of ways, some of the weirdnesses of the matching up of a term to what the term means and to how like to what people do when they say they're doing it, to what people do when they don't understand it, all that kind of stuff. So let's start here. I guess our question that we're just discussing is, what is digital transformation? James, do you have like a thought of what the term means to you?
Um, well, in my very simple brain, it's breaking it down. I mean, the digital is a
It's
transition,
digits, it's fingers. Okay, got it. Yep.
from manual pen and paper to some form of automation. We're
Yeah.
using some kind of technology to transition from manual to from semi-automated to fully automated, let's say.
Right.
And the transformation part is just figuring out what does that look like. I mean,
Yeah.
how do we adjust our processes to where if somebody's lugging around a notebook and logging their entire day and then transcribing it at the end of the day, it's not terribly difficult to imagine how technology can make that better. But there's also that functional side of it where we're just trying to figure out, okay, how should this process go?
Yeah.
What are the risks? What are the bottlenecks? What are the pain points? I mean, I think that to take a really roundabout definition and pull it together, it's the intersection of technology with process.
Right. Yeah. 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 Because so when I first heard the term, and I first heard some sales or marketing drone go on about it, I thought it was that very first slice of what you said. It was, let's take paper-based processes and make them digital. And I was like, hasn't that been happening since like 1983? Like, what is different now? Why are we like swimming in this like river of this term now to describe a thing that's been going on for decades already? Right. And
Yeah.
so the latter part of what you said there is kind of the thing that I think, whether or not people realize it, I think is, or and I shouldn't say it that way. Whether or not people describe it that way, I think it's the kind of the thing is it's the digital transformation that I think people want to have exist or say or talk about more clearly is that very like, let's change the process. Let's put technology in our tool belt to like reinvent or change a process, right? And that is the thing that I think, if I strip away the um the BS around the term digital transformation, and I look at what does it mean and how does it, like, what is under the cover there. To me, that's the thing, is that like it is possible to completely upend and revise and reimagine something you're doing in your business or your entire business altogether based on how technology can help you or can be a part of your tool belt. I don't think that's necessarily what's going on with a lot of the vendors who are trying to sell digital transformation, right? Because I mean, I don't know how to say this without just
You're in
big.
a safe base. You're in the trust tree.
This is a game. This is a safe zone. We're not going to show anybody this video, right? So who cares? Um, when I hear big SI type places say digital transformation, I never think to myself, oh, wow, they're going to reinvent how that customer does business. I think to myself, oh wow, they're going to reinvent billing that customer a lot of money for doing what they've always done. You know, like it's like it's just another word for upgrading your ERP or whatever. I don't, man, I'm a total cynic, and my cynicism is not. Man, I'm gonna keep saying this. I apologize. My cynicism is not that technology can't play a role in transforming what things are in the universe. My cynicism is the difference between that reality and the marketing sales BS avalanche that surrounds it of trying to sell you services and solutions in that space when they're not really, that's not the source of it. You know, we
Yeah.
were in our kind of our pregame warm up, the kind of the place we were going. And once again, glad we're in a safe space that nobody's going to hear this, but like the when we think deeply about the term and what it has behind it, the it cannot be, it shouldn't be, and I think in most successful cases, it hasn't been the vendor of a tool or the SI service provider who is actually transforming things. It is the smart people inside your company transforming things with the assistance of vendor or tool or whatever else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It comes from the brilliance of the people who actually know and care deeply about what the business needs to do itself. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very creative exercise.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, for any time of IT vendor, like, all right, I got two words for you guys: blockchain. Boom. Like that does not in and of itself equal digital
That's
transformation.
yeah.
Is there a way that technology maybe could be applied in certain areas to, transform the way a process works? Sure, but the hard work, and I think, the stuff that a lot of these vendors try to kind of, minimize is, no matter how you slice this, I mean, somebody's going to have to do the hard work of looking at your current process and figuring out, okay, how do we make this more efficient? Where are the
Yeah.
bottlenecks? What are the KPIs that we're trying to meet? Are there different ways that we can reimagine this process? On and on and on. And it takes a certain amount of creativity. I think it requires a level of empathy, to your point, to really put yourselves in the customer's shoes and trying to understand
Yeah.
day in the life. Like what
Mhm.
if it were me having to do this?
Mhm.
This is particularly painful, and I think a lot of the state of IT, even in 2022, is largely still forms over
Yeah.
data.
Oh yeah. Oh
You know,
yeah. I mean, can you imagine how long forms over data will still be an employable thing for IT services companies? It's going to be a long time before that's not a
yeah,
thing, at least in some degree. I mean, tools are going to change it and things are going to make it work maybe slightly differently, but that idea is going to persist for decades more.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's you've got to break down interdepartmental barriers.
Yeah.
We've got to get human beings connecting in ways that they haven't connected before. The automation part of this is huge.
Yeah.
Microsoft did a study several years ago. Uh, all across their Excel or really, Microsoft 365 sales base. So massive, massive customers all the way down
Yeah.
to your mom and
Yeah.
pops. And it was basically their findings show that roughly 80% of those businesses were being run on some combination of Excel, Access, and pen and paper. And that's a really staggering number when you think about it.
Yeah.
Whether they have Oracle, SAP, Workday, Salesforce, Dynamics, and pick all these big major vendors, that have these business systems that do a lot of things. To think that a lot of these companies have that in place, they've invested heavily in getting it in place, and yet there's still all this work going on over here that's largely manual, and probably has some gaps and inefficiencies, and maybe even puts company at risk on some levels. I think that's maybe what has caused digital transformation to be more notable. It sticks
Mm,
out more. Like I
yeah,
have this
yeah.
better defined process over here, bookended by two kind of ridiculous processes. Really, when you think about it, I mean, it's like uh, that part is, especially for the younger generation. I mean, not to get into the whole, you know, Gen X, Gen Z, and all
Tell us
that,
tell
but I
us what
mean,
you mean, Grandpa. Yeah,
but I mean, there is a different level of expectation among
yeah.
younger workforce types that,
Mhm.
man, I'm not going to sit there Homer Simpson style and sit there and click the same button
And
all day long,
vent poison gas, vent poison gas, vent
Right.
poison gas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That and I think in our once again in our pregame, we kind of came to an analogy that works pretty well for some of this stuff too. Is like eh, you could spend millions of dollars and weeks and months of time on a fancy BPM kind of thing that shows you a doc flow all the way from incident to purchase order to fix to all this kind of stuff,
Yep.
right? For something going on. And you could BPM the living hell out of it. And you could look at it and say, okay, for every leg of the journey, here is where we could improve some time. And that could be great. Or you could go talk to the people who run the thing and say, oh, yeah, when this happens, we can only get up this pole once a week because Bob, the only one who's certified to do it, only works on Tuesdays in this part of town. So whenever this breaks, only Bob can fix it, and Bob's only there Tuesdays. And you have your answer right there as to why the document flow stops at the
Right.
step where at that from the BPM side, you don't know that Bob is the bottleneck. But if you just talk to the people doing the thing, they know. And then you would be, oh, well, maybe we should train more people on climbing this kind of pole or whatever to fix the thing, and then we can go, right?
Yeah.
There's too much there's too much there's too much depending on the vendor and tool and not enough navel gazing introspection, I guess. And also like sometimes to you got to like burn it down a little bit to build it up better, I think too. Those are the
Yeah.
things that I think lead to like digital transformation, you know.
Well, and at the risk of ringing that low code bell one more time.
Uh-oh, ding ding ding. You have put $5 in the jar. Yeah.
I mean, I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, and it was Charles Amana, who is product owner of the Power Platform at Microsoft, talking about the way that they've seen the platform grow, and one of the industry sectors where they saw massive growth that they were shocked by was life sciences, where everything is pretty complex and of course highly
Mm,
regulated and so
yeah.
forth. But what they found was they had so many very bright people working in different areas of the business that were just technology starved.
Mm,
Like, we know where these pain points lie, and we have ideas about how to fix them. We just don't have the tools to do it. And then all of a sudden the tools kind of arrive magically, and you get to this critical mass. And so it's an interesting case study, I think, in terms of the whole citizen development, fusion
yeah.
team concept, where
Yeah.
digital transformation. I think a lot of IT vendors would like to say, buy our product and you will be on your way to digital transformation success. I think the reality is, it's a company wide journey that takes years
Yeah.
to realistically. I mean,
Yeah.
processes are changing all the time. It's a lot of work, and to just expect a silver bullet to magically appear and that's going to fix all of it. No, it's we've got to come up with a much more pragmatic strategy
Yeah.
that gets a lot of multidisciplinary teams together to get to the table and figure out, okay, how do we do this better?
What do you think it looks like to achieve digital transformation nirvana? Like poof, you are now a digital transformation bodhisattva. You've achieved nirvana. Tell us and the listeners, what is it like to be among the nirvana?
I think it starts from the bottom up, not the top down.
Hmm.
I think, you've got to establish a culture throughout the organization, empowering department leaders and individual workers, all the way up, just to, hey, if you see an inefficiency, let's not just, turn a blind eye to it and move on. Maybe we don't have the time, resources to attack it today, but at the very least, let's get on a backlog. Let's stop ignoring it. Let's have a strategy. And I think that gives rise to, the levels of productivity that we're all hoping to get. But, if you kind of sit from on high and say, all right, we're going to buy these strategic tools and we're going to implement this company-wide strategy, I just think it's going to be very, very difficult to get traction because the pace, the nuance, I mean, individual departments, I mean, they're all wrestling with different things. And
Yeah.
it's so difficult, I think, to find, commonality there when you're dealing with, in some respects, I mean, talking about that 80-20 split, despite the complexity of large scale ERP systems, in some ways they have a pretty well defined domain,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm talking about,
Mhm.
orders to cash, hire to retire, procure to
Yeah.
pay.
Yeah.
There's a pretty, deterministic flow there. Everybody can sort of wrap their head around, what a purchase order is and a purchase requisition and how that
Mhm.
flow works and whatever. But what about all the other stuff? Like we got these weird regulations that we're having to account for, and maybe we're trying to figure out, how do we even implement a green ledger? What does that even mean? And what does it look like? And I think those are much more difficult questions to answer, and um, realistically, not questions that an IT vendor probably can answer
Yeah.
for a lot of these customers.
Yeah. That for my own purposes, I'm going to answer my own question too here. What does it look like when digital transformation achieves nirvana? For me, I think too, there's a sense in which, like, because we've talked about this before, maybe I wrote about it on a blog or something, but like the I want the people who traditionally define themselves as like the techies to be more business aware and feel like they're a part of the business they work for, and vice versa. I want the people who work in the functional side of the business, or the business stuff, to feel like they can simply to feel like they're part of the technology that makes up the company, and they can have a clear, and both of those parties have a clear voice and a line for ideas, uh, crossing the streams,
Yep.
going one to the other. If you feel like that, then I think you're well on the way to digital transformation nirvana, I think.
Yeah, empowerment is so important. I mean,
Yeah.
at some point, this just kind of distills down into basic human psychology. I mean,
Yeah.
well, was the saying, train yourself or automate yourself out of your job and onto something else. Like
Yeah.
that takes a certain amount of security. I
Yeah.
think for a lot of people to, like if I'm the one person that can do this at my job, then that gives me job security, and
Yeah.
so maybe
Why
I
would I
don't.
why would I tell anybody how to do that thing? Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
for management to move away from the Mr. Burns excellence, we can reduce half the department. It's
Yeah.
I've actually freed up resources to do other more productive things, and
Yeah.
it's a mindset cultural shift that not every company has that
Mm-mm.
ethos today.
No. I think so. I want to start to draw the curtain here a little bit, because this is a ripe topic, I think, for us to try to bring to some other folks too. So I kind of think and we haven't talked about this until just this moment, but I kind of think we might have the seeds of another like full-blown season of our podcast here in terms of what do other folks think about this. So we got to do, I think we got to do some of our own homework here, James, and find some people who aren't us to help us kind of answer this question here a little bit. I think we're on a good path to poking some stuff here, you know.
I'll dig it.
Dig it. All right. So, well, on behalf of both of us, thanks for listening. Look forward to more stuff about digital transformation and other things on whatever else we're ruminating on. Next time on Switched On. Thanks, guys.